Welcome to Star Wars Action News, helping Star Wars collectors collect better.
Greetings all, this is Steve the Ginger Prince, and yes, my UK reports are like buses. You wait ages for one, and two turn up one after the other. The reason? Con season. It's in full swing here in Blighty, and for my next trick I thought I'd attempt to do something I've never done before. Attend two different conventions in the same day. We started the penultimate day of May, heading down the East Lancs Road to Liverpool for Mersey Comiccon. This was to be the second Mersey Comiccon, and we were lucky enough to have won free entry to the event in a Twitter contest run earlier in the year by hosts Sci-Fi Entertainment. The con was being held in a student union building just opposite one of the city's more unusual landmarks, the cathedral that looks more like a space rocket, making the venue easy to find, and that helped us get in the con 5 minutes before official opening time. The con is only in its second year and is still small, but the good news is it's definitely growing. The main hall had a good spread of vendors, and a lot of these were individuals with novel products rather than toy shops trying to sell you overpriced goods, which always makes for a more interesting experience. Over 10 autograph guests were signing, a lot of whom are regulars on the con circuit over here, and none of whom we needed. But the Merseysiders were lapping it up. I mean, who doesn't want to meet the man who brought Lord freaking Vader to life? So with no autographs to acquire, we went shopping, and our first of two acquisitions was at a seller called Not Like That, a young lady who was selling comic book decoupage gifts. Now you all know I'm a sucker for a bit of the old decoupage, partly because it's a fancy French word, and partly because if done well, it looks sweet. I like it so much, I even had a bit of a bash at it myself, taking my initials and a spare copy of the Marvel Star Wars Annual and creating some lettering to stick on the door of my collecting room. This gave me ultimate respect for anyone in the decoupage game. It's time consuming, and a bugger to do well, and some of the gifts that this girl was selling were pretty cool. I could choose from a variety of comic properties, including DC and Marvel, but opted for 4 ceramic drinks coasters, one featuring a looming Lord Vader, looking like he's about to choke someone out, one with just the creepiest Palpatine on, it's gonna give me nightmares, one with an anime looking Leia and some stormtroopers on, and one that looks like Caged Heat Mon Calamari style. I have no idea which comics any of these snippets are from. I'm sure MPB could tell me. The coasters are effectively a decoupage tile with a protective surface and a felt bottom. Fanar. But they're cool, and at a tenner for all 4, they're now protecting my tables from beer spillage. My second purchase was a blast from the past, as a figure that I've previously ignored on many occasions caught my eye, and demanded that it be bought. I don't know how many times I've walked past the Power of the Force 2 Expanded Universe Grand Admiral Thrawn and thought, nah. And I don't know what flipped in my head and said pick this up. Perhaps it was the Great Thrawn cosplay that I saw the other week. Anyway, this was in good nick. It's 3D playcene card looking good, and out of the packet it's a great figure. Ever since A New Hope, that white Imperial uniform was always cooler than the grey, because it seemed so damn exclusive, and it goes well with his pale blue skin and freaky red eyes. That Ysalamir is also one strange looking little accessory. It looks like it should be in the Alien franchise, not the Star Wars saga. The back of the card reminded me just how cool this line looks, and I'm ashamed that I only own one other figure from it, the Princess Leia. I keep telling anyone who'll listen that I'm not an EU guy, but when you look at my shelf, I've got nearly 50 figures from the expanded universe. Who's got 2 thumbs and is kidding himself? This guy. After shopping, we popped upstairs to a Lego exhibit put on by the organisers of a Lego show being put on a couple of miles from where we live, in August. Sadly, there was no Star Wars to see here, but who doesn't like a giant Lego Titanic or a Statue of Liberty made out of bricks? We may just have to check out this show later this year. The cosplay was strong, and it's always great seeing members of the public, not used to the con scene, meeting Imperial troops on the streets of their city. My favourite bit of dressing up was Tony the Chicken Fett. Respect to anyone who can commit that kind of foul. I'm really pleased for Phil, the organiser of the event. It was a cracking show, and it went so well that he's planning to do it all again in November of this year. Aces. From a developing con that's going from strength to strength to a well-established major player. For our second con of the day, we headed back down the East Lancs Road to more familiar territory for the awkwardly named Film and Comic Con Manchester. Or as the kids are calling it, FCC, man. The event was a new one in the Showmaster's calendar, and being held at Event City near the Trafford Shopping Centre, we were pleased it didn't seem super busy, and walked straight in without any queuing. We've been to this venue before for some toy fairs, and it's got loads of space, and this seemed to be chock full of vendors. But before we started shopping again, there was one autograph to acquire. Peter Ross is not Jonathan's annoying chubbier brother. No, he played a Hoth trooper in The Empire Strikes Back, and a Nikto guard in Return of the Jedi. You know, Klaatu, Berent, Nikto. This was the 10x8 that I asked him to sign, and he was happy to oblige. What a lovely fella. Signature obtained, we started to work our way around the stalls, desperate for new action figures. We were overjoyed to find them, but dismayed at the price. New 6-inch Black Series in blue stripe packaging were being sold by some unscrupulous vendors for £35 a pop. That's over $50 a figure. Luckily not all vendors are out to fleece you. The first of these noble squires being our good friend Three Darths, who had the Emperor Palpatine for £10 cheaper at a more reasonable £25. Looking good in his box, and even better out of it, this figure is 6 inches of pure evil. And in my opinion, if like me you're dipping in and out of this line, then this is something you've got to pick up. Hasbro have done a great soft goods robe here. It looks thicker than it actually is, and hangs well on the figure. It's got a lovely little plastic clasp tying it together on the top, and the hood can be pulled back, revealing Dontius's ugly mug. That's another thing they've done well with this one. The face is a good likeness, with all the wrinkles in the right places and a great pair of evil eyes. His walking cane is also done well, in a glossier than usual plastic, and his left hand is a pointy one, so you can pose him as defenceless cripple or threatening Sith Master. Another honourable seller with Black Series 6-inch at £25 was Got to Get That. A couple of fellas that I've not come across before, but from whom I'll buy again. These guys had the Bosk that I think is the greatest figure in this wave. The Trandoshan is imposing in the box, or should that be Bosk? The scale is the first thing that impresses you. He's bigger than the standard figures, Pip in hand by a couple of centimetres and towering above Luke. But he's a good couple of centimetres smaller than Chewie in this line. He just feels the right size. The figure is beautifully sculpted, from face to flight suit to his laughably classic monster suit hands and feet. I love his stiff lower arms. Bosk was such a scary bounty hunter to me as a kid, but looking at those arms now, I don't know why. I love that nonky practical look to the aliens in Star Wars. This figure's anything but nonky, looking like he's ready to devour his prey. Hasbro have got the face spot on, and front to back he's looking good. He comes with a nice big rifle, and I'm posing him with it slung over his back like the big hunter's done for the day. Got to Get That also adds something I've only heard about, and not seen in person until now. All 6 sets of figures in the digital release commemorative collection. Who releases a wave of figures to commemorate something getting released on iTunes? Star Wars does, of course. I'll always buy one figure from a series so that I have an example of that card back or packaging in my collection. So it was a case of which of the 6 sets I would pick up when I eventually found them. After studying the sets, I was torn between episode 4 and episode 6, so Suzanne stepped in and decided for me, picking up the Return of the Jedi set. The first thing to say here is that it is one sweet bit of packaging. About the size of a hardback novel, you get a white slipcover with a photo of the 4 figures in the set on one side and the other sets on the reverse. One of the spines of the slipcover has a pretty standard silver Star Wars logo, but the other is a sweet piece of art that if you buy all 6 and put them on a shelf like books, will make them look fantastic as a collection. Under the slipcover is a window box with one of my favourite Return of the Jedi posters depicted on the reverse. If you're a packaging slut, this is definitely going to tickle your pickle. So who's been chosen to represent Return of the Jedi? Admiral Akbar? Chance would be a fine thing. No, they've gone for Jabba's skiff Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, Wicket, Boba Fett and a biker scout. Or Soldat Éclaireur, if you like a bit of dual language on your packaging. Now correct me if I'm wrong please, but I think this Luke is a new sculpt. He looks a bit more svelte than previous incarnations, and that face looks unfamiliar to me. I'm not moaning, apart from some overly bushy eyebrows, I like everything about this figure. Milk Tray Man Luke is my favourite Skywalker outfit. He's got his tunic flap open, and holding his lightsaber he looks a complete badass. There's something about having one gloved hand that floats my boat, and this figure's the best in the set for me. The Wicket looks more familiar to me, like he's a repack. He's the right size and scale, unlike countless previous versions of the little fella, but the paint job on him's not great. They've done a slapdash job with the white bits of his fur. Do you need a 5 points of articulation Fett? Well, you could do a lot worse than the one in this pack. Looking like a mini version of the Black Series 6-inch Fett, this has got a really good paint job, right down to some bits of wear and tear detailed on his helmet and the Mando decal on his shoulder armour. Screw the lack of articulation, he can hold his blaster menacingly and turn his head. What more do you want for £6.50? Yes, that's right, this set was £25. That's a pretty decent price for 4 3 3/4 inch action figures nowadays. The Biker Scout is the disappointment of the box, uninspiring and poorly painted. I'd have gone for another character to round out this 4-ball. On from the most recent release to a saucy bit of vintage. We found a vendor called Heroes for Sale, who had a nice display of some old plastic. Talking to the guy, he seemed to do a nice line in house clearances, and had some lovely stuff, including an AFA grade-worthy rhomba that was a bit steep for my pocketbook. I had my eye on the narrators of the saga, starting with the Sensorscope R2 from 1981. A bit grubby, but with a complete sticker, I owned this little guy on card, and I had to get him loose for the couple of quid he was asking. Stood next to him was his partner in crime, a fixed limb, shiny vac metal 3PO, all the way from 1977. What I love about this figure is not apparent until you sit him down. On his feet, a la Andy in Toy Story, are etched the initials of his previous owner. Not being allowed Star Wars figures as a kid, as they weren't educational toys, still gets me. But when I look at the M and the B carved into this figure's feet, I picture little Matthew Brown, so desperate not to lose his pride and joy, and it gives me a warm fuzzy feeling. As a pair, these two look smashing, and having recently acquired artwork depicting scale drawings of these figures from my good friend the Retro Draftsman, they're going to live in my lounge right next to this awesome art once it's framed, giving my living room vintage feels. All these great finds, and I was having a blast, but the best was yet to come. I like having my socks rocked off, people, and that's exactly what a lovely gent called Steam Sailor did to me at FCC Man. This dude is a prop maker that has got with the times and acquired a 3D printer that, combined with his prop making skills, is going to lead to him making some pretty sweet items over the next couple of years. His work included a number of movie properties, and Suzanne picked up a keyring of one of the playing pieces from the Jumanji board, as you rarely get collectibles from one of her favourite films. I was all about his Star Wars, and he's not looking back but forward to The Force Awakens. I was sad to hear that he'd already sold the only 3D printed Kylo Ren lightsaber that he brought with him to the show. He described it as a 5-piece 3D printed replica of the new baddie's weapon, assembled and painted into a full-size saber. If they look as good as described, and he has them available at London Comiccon in July, then I'll be picking one up. What he did have though was just as awesome. Remember that creepy looking melted Vader helmet from the second trailer? Well, I now own one. Coming in an attractive little box with a photocopied image from the trailer on, this 3D printed melty Vader head stands about 2.5 inches square, and its quality blew my mind. I've got to be honest, I'm in love with it. It's two-tone black and grey with some nice heft, not obviously 3D printed until you examine it really close up, and it looks like what we saw in the trailer, right down to the melted grill. It's my new favourite thing, and it can be your new favourite thing too. I picked up 2 of these little beauties, and I'm giving one away right now. If you can tell me how many 3 3/4 inch Star Wars loose action figures I have on display in my collection room at the time of recording this report, then you too can have a melted Vader head. It's kinda like that guess how many sweets in the jar game. Just tweet your guess to the show at SW Action News, or my good self at TGP73 by the 15th of July, and the nearest guess will win the Steam Sailor 3D Vader helmet. I'll announce the winner in a later report. It seems like everyone has a good idea on show floors at the moment. I love this creativity. Another example of this is a vendor called Hanging Wall Heroes. This dude is taking the ubiquitous Funko Pops, pairing them up and window boxing them against some sweet backgrounds. At 50 quid a pop, or pair of framed pops to be more precise, they're a little pricey, but damn they look good, and it's a bit more of an attractive way to display them than just sticking them unopened on your shelf. After all that shopping, we chilled out, taking in some of the excellent cosplay. Con organisers Showmasters seem to be raising its profile, and there seemed to be a contest of some description going on. My favourite from the day was Velma. Jinky's shoe is good, and if you're going to have a do, I say have a Scooby-Doo. As we were about to leave, knackered after our second con in 24 hours, I spotted that there was a silent auction near the exit. Now, I've had success with these before, winning the holy grail of a piece of the Crate Dragon skeleton in London and some signed objects in Milton Keynes, so it was worth a look, and I'm so glad I did. Being auctioned was a crew baseball cap from The Force Awakens. Not only that, it was signed by Carrie Fisher and Miltos Yeralumo, you know, the fencing tutor guy from Game of Thrones, who apparently is in the new movie. I was surprised to see that there was only one bid on the item, and even that was low. I stuck a bid on of about half what I thought it was worth, thinking that with another day of the con left, I was whistling in the wind. And I left giving it no more thought till the day after, when Showmasters rang me to tell me I'd won it. Awesome! I now own my first Force Awakens collectible and my first Force Awakens autographed item. Well, that just made it one of the best con days ever. An expensive one, but a blast with some great goodies to show for it. Right, that'll do, Donkey, that'll do.
Thanks for watching this video. You can see full episodes of Star Wars Action News with more collecting news and reviews at swactionnews.com. We also have thousands of toy and collectible photos in our photo gallery. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. May the pegs be stocked and the Force be with you.